My name's Tristan Burfield. I wanted to do a bit of role play today and pretend we're in an art gallery. Okay, I've set this up as a sort of sonic arts workshop, and what we're going to be looking at today is the music of avant-garde composer John Cage and some of his ideas concerning the music of chance. This is a theme running throughout the whole of these 6 lessons. Today's particular lecture is going to focus on the use of resonance in his work. So this is for everyone today. You don't really need any musical ability to do this. It's more about using your imagination and sort of being resourceful. So the focus is really on using everyday materials which everyone has access to. Whereas most mainstream education focuses on you being a consumer, buying the latest products, upgrading to the latest software, what I'm trying to do here is focus on something different, something a bit more individual. So, whereas most mainstream education looks at repeating common styles and idioms, not many courses allow you to sort of think as an artist and consider the sort of philosophy and artistic aspect of what you're doing. So this is what we're going to be focusing on today. So rather than looking at rhythm and harmony, we're going to be focusing on texture and quality of sound. And the outcome of this series of 6 lessons, we're going to produce a portfolio of work inspired by the work of John Cage, creating 3 original compositions in reference to the things we cover. So the main 2 John Cage pieces we're going to be looking at today are both pieces of chance music that explore an element of resonance. The first we're going to be looking at is a piece called Sonatas and Interludes for a Prepared Piano by John Cage, written in 1946-48. And the second one we're going to be looking at is a piece called Cartridge Music, written in 1960. And we're going to be finishing with a collaborative piece inspired by John Cage called Stones, which we're all going to have a go at a bit later on. Before we start all of that, we just need to understand a few of the themes of what we're exploring today. So first of all, I'd like to talk a little bit about chance music. This is sort of an idea pioneered by John Cage, and it's inspired by his interest in Eastern philosophy and Zen Buddhism. And this really came to fruition in about 1951 for a piece called Music of Changes, which is inspired by a book called The Book of Changes, otherwise known as the I Ching. And in this, he used chance elements from the I Ching. Now, the I Ching is kind of a book that gives you sort of spiritual guidance in it. It gives you sort of indistinct guidance as to how to carry out certain events. So on the bottom right, I've got a picture of some hexagrams, and the idea is that you decode these, and depending on how you read these, you're given sort of a form of instruction in which you can openly interpret. And John Cage used these to decide what notes to use, what rhythms to use, what harmonies to use, and how to structure various forms of music. He was also very interested in the idea of graphic scores, which we're going to have a look at the moment. This is from a piece called Cartridge Music, which unfortunately we can't quite see, but it's a series of acetates which you can move in any particular combination you like. And the idea is to translate it into music. And the idea is, instead of following a set score like a robot, you're kind of using your own creativity and opening yourself up to chance events and improvisation. And that's what we're going to be looking at today. So this is something we're going to be exploring throughout the course. So I know I'm sort of throwing this on you a little bit, but if you were to just look at that initially, how would you go about interpreting that? I'm going to see if there's any brave volunteers from the audience. If not, I'm afraid I'm going to have to pick on someone. Any volunteers? Yeah, go for it.
With what though?
Well, I mean, you can. This is just, say you were performing a piece of music on a piano. How would you go about interpreting that?
Oh, I see, okay. I thought you wanted me actually to do it.
No, not this stage. It's just getting used to the concepts at this stage.
Well, I mean, I take a I go, nothing's joined up, so I go 5 lines by 5 lines, and I would just start with a lower pitch, moving up to a higher pitch, and I would treat each line as roughly equivalent to duration.
Yeah.
So it'd be like woo, flat, woo, B flat, bum bum bum, boom, bum bum bum. That sort of thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing, because there is an amount of indeterminacy, you're right, and it's open to how you want to interpret it. But things to think about is that he's laid it out on a stave, so he obviously wants some mention of pitch, as you said there, and yeah, there's mentions of duration. He's used the odd musical sort of crescendo markings and so forth here, so you know, it's a combination of indeterminacy and a graphic score. So this is really just to get used to these ideas. So you've got the option of using one of these graphic scores in one of your pieces if you wish to. So the first piece we're going to be looking at today is by John Cage, Sonatas and Interludes for Prepared Piano. And in this piece, John Cage put small objects such as screws, nails, cork, and rubber onto and between the strings of the piano to produce unusual percussive or harmonic effects. So let's have a quick listen. So that diagram we can see there is from a John Cage prepared piano. You can see some of the preparations he's used, various different materials to create different sort of effects. I'm not going to dwell on this too much, but this is sort of an example of one of John Cage's incorporation of Eastern philosophy, and it's up to you to decide whether you think this is sort of more skin deep or whether this represents a genuine interest. He says it's influenced by the Raza Indian tradition, and he mentions that the emotions are divided into 4 groups: 4 white, humour, wonder, erotic and heroic, and 4 black, anger, fear, disgust and sorrow. So you could see those perhaps as positives and those as negatives, but he didn't really specify which of the pieces relate to which emotions, whether there exists such direct correspondence between them. So this is something that we'll be looking at a bit later in the piece, whether you want to incorporate such philosophies into your own work. And we can see here, he's been quite specific about how he wants these preparations to be carried out. He's given the note name on the left, the material he wants to use the preparation with, and he's even specified sort of the harmonic content that he wants to access as well. Quite an early piece, and he hasn't really got into indeterminacy so heavily here. But what we're going to try and do in this session today is look at how we can recreate some of these effects on an electric guitar. So, I mean, the main reason I did this is I imagine there's probably a fair few guitarists in the audience today. That's kind of a show of hands for guitarists. Excellent, very good. So the focus is on extended techniques. We're not going to be using any effects or digital processing. We can either place items on or under the strings. We can either strike the strings in an unorthodox manner or manipulate the pickups in an unusual way. Now the focus obviously for this session is on sort of sonic art and so forth, but I mean you could use these in different contexts. I'm going to be giving examples on an acoustic electric, and you could quite easily use some of these sort of techniques perhaps in a folky or classical style. Today's preparations are going to be non-permanent, i.e. we can remove some of the preparations after we put them in and it's not going to damage the instrument. But there are many people that have used permanent preparations, and I'm not going to dwell on this too much, but this is an example of a prepared guitar from an experimental luthier, Yuri Landman, and as you can see you can fret the instrument by moving the rod up and down, and you're sort of really bringing the guitar to its basics, a headstock and a body really. So you've got one decision to make, whether you are going to hold the guitar on a strap, whether you're going to sit down with the guitar, or whether you're going to lay it flat on a technique that we can call tabletop guitar, pioneered by an avant-garde guitarist called Keith Rowe. Now he likens this practice to sort of action painting, i.e. you can lie a painting on the floor then sort of throw paint at it, a bit like the American abstract painters. His idea is to capture the energy and the dynamism of his art form, I suppose. And also there's various practical considerations. You know, your preparations are less likely to fall out. I've got mine laid out like that here. But let's have a listen to what sort of effects he creates with this. So the first type of preparation we can use is by placing items under the strings, and we can do this for harmonic or percussive effect depending on the density, resonance and size of material used. This is an example of a technique using sort of more percussive effect because it's affecting the attack of the instrument. What I've done is place some felt under the bridge here, and this gives the effect of a sort of muffled quality. So. We can also use preparations to create sort of more harmonic effects. And what we can do is by placing items under the strings, we can bring out different overtones, which are basically different frequencies in the timbre of the instrument. So the reason why you play a C on a guitar and then play a C on a piano, and that even if you play the same note it sounds different, is because there's different overtones and frequencies. So we can really affect the timbre of the instrument, and we can create some interesting effects by experimenting with harmonic and inharmonic overtones. And we can sort of define whether they're harmonic or inharmonic in relation to the fundamental frequency. So we're going to carry out an experiment sort of with a few fishing sinkers, which is going to bring out some strange overtones in the instrument by placing unorthodox weights on the guitar strings. The ones you need to go for if you want to try this out yourself are size BB fishing sinkers. Make sure you go for non-toxic ones, because the lead ones are going to poison you if you do get those. They're still making lead ones for some reason. So let's sort of have a listen to how that sounds. Make sure you clip them on with pliers, because they do have a tendency to fall off if they're not secured properly. Right, notice how I'm striking the instrument and I'm playing behind the preparation and in front of it to bring out different tones. So quite a Tibetan bell-like quality. So there's some quite interesting tones there. But you can do more with this through striking the strings in a strange way, which can bring out different harmonies and frequencies. This is an example of what it sounds like when we bow it. We can also try different techniques, sort of a more percussive effect. So yeah, I mean these are all things you can experiment with, just different ways of bringing out different overtones and different methods of attack. The final way you can sort of prepare a guitar is through manipulating the pickups. One way to create some interesting effects is through electromagnetic interference, i.e. placing your mobile phone next to the pickup. You can also get some interesting effects just by using the pickup as a basic sort of microphone. or we can reproduce one of Keith Rowe's tricks earlier by placing sort of a spring next to the pickup. So yeah, these are all sort of interesting noise effects that you can use to scare people with. So the final piece we're going to be looking at today is a piece called Cartridge Music, written in 1960 by John Cage. It's another piece that explores resonance in a different way. It also has a chance element and it has a graphic score in which you follow. So in this piece, Cage removed the needle from a phonographic pickup and replaced it with small thin objects such as pipe cleaners, matches and wires. He then scratched along the grooves and surfaces of everyday items. So it's really looking at sort of the sound of minute sounds, if you like. So he said at this time, everything in the world has its own spirit which can be released by setting it into vibration. So we're going to substitute a phonographic cartridge for a piezo disc. If people haven't seen one of these before, that's an example there. And you can buy these quite cheaply on places like eBay, about £5 for 4. Piezo means to press, and you can attach these to various objects via either clipping it, say, I've just got a tuner here with a basic clip, or you can attach it with gaffer tape. I've got an amplified scourer here, which I've attached to a piezo disc. So basically these discs are small brass discs with a small wafer of crystal soldered directly to one side. When the crystal vibrates, it releases an electric current. The crystal translates vibration from the objects it touches into electric currents which travel through wires to your amplifier. So the difference between this and a conventional microphone is that it senses vibrations directly from the object itself, and unlike a microphone, not from the air the object is vibrating. And this allows you to amplify minute vibrations within tiny objects that we wouldn't be able to hear so well normally. So let's have a listen to some of these sounds. I'll start with the amplified scourer here. So you can create less abrasive sounds through a more cleaner distortion, which I'm going to show you now. And this is basically a DVD disc which I've hooked up to a little piezo microphone. We can get some quite nice sounds through either hitting the instrument, and we can get some quite good sounds from bowing actually. Or you get some quite nice sounds from sort of basic contact. So, a myriad of sounds that you can explore with those. Right, so we're going to finish with a piece by Tristan Burfield. This was again inspired by John Cage. It was written in 1968. Tristan Burfield was a student of John Cage's, and it's again a piece that explores chance ideas and resonance in a different context. So I'm going to hand out some stones. If you would like to take 2 each of different sizes and colours.
Do you need sensitivity?
No.
No.
No. So, we'll start the piece in a moment when I clap my hands, but I'll read you out the instructions here and pay attention to instructions within instructions, if you like. So, make sounds with stones, draw sounds out of stones using a number of sizes and kinds and colours, for the most part discreetly, sometimes in rapid sequences. For the most part, striking stones with stones, but also stones on other surfaces, inside the open head of a drum, for instance, or other than struck, bowed, for instance, or amplified, do not break anything. So this is Christian Wolf's instructions for this piece. So the way I'm going to sort of guide this today is just to give you a method of instruction before we start. So I'd say pick a strategy from the text and act it out. And so the best way is to sort of focus on maybe one instruction within the instruction. For example, I'm going to follow this instruction here, bowed for instance. So I'm going to be bowing the rock. But someone else perhaps could look at sometimes in rapid sequences, and we could sort of build up a collage together from a series of individual instructions. I want you to sort of consider your role sort of in the group texture, sort of be able to justify it. So I might ask a few people afterwards what they did and why. Follow John Cage's advice about removing your ego from the process and consider Cage's maxim of letting the sounds be themselves. Use the limitations, and you don't have to come in straight away. You could come in towards the end of the piece, or you could come in halfway, but just consider how it affects the structure. So on the count of 3, 3, 2, 1. Sequences perhaps. I'm scraping it on the smooth surface as well as the smooth surface. Great, that's fantastic, yeah. So I'm going to ask a few questions. Again, pick on someone from the audience, unless anybody wants to volunteer, on what strategy they used and whether they thought it was effective. I guess, go for it.
Right. I used a rapid sequence.
Yeah.
And basically just did random tappings and scrapes and then mix the two together.
Cool, yeah. Martin?
I was trying to get some booming bass thing out the floor.
Yeah.
I'm dropping it.
Good. Yeah, I mean that's the idea. I mean there isn't any wrongs or rights in this. It's about experimenting and trying different things out. Great. So I just really wanted to finish just raising a few questions about what we've done today, and really just getting you to think about what we looked at and why. So the first question we need to ask ourselves is how can we compare and contrast the 3 different approaches to resonance? I mean, we saw 3 pieces today. The first one was an example of a prepared guitar, and the second one was an example of a contact microphone attached to various objects that was amplified, and the third piece was unamplified objects. So which were the most effective in your mind? It's just something you need to think about in your justifications of the compositions, because half of the battle is really explaining itself, to be honest. When you're approaching galleries, it's about sort of being able to talk the talk more than being able to walk the walk in many instances, I think. We need to think about, can timbre and sound texture be an equal substitute for rhythm and harmony? Is it necessary to use harmony and rhythm? Is it best to use these in combination? And what extent do you want to use this in your own compositions? We need to think about, can chance operations add spontaneity and encourage individual interpretation? That's something you need to be aware of in your own mind. Is it shocking anymore? Is it of lasting value? Because a lot of these techniques are really just designed to shock, so you've got to have that in your own mind as well. We were talking a little bit about Cage's spiritual sort of baggage that he attaches to his pieces. Is this genuine? Is he sort of an anarchist, or is he just a charlatan peddling mystic hokum? And you've got to think about, if you're going to get serious about this sort of sonic art side of things, what level do you want to delegate responsibility in your work? There's lots of artists like Damien Hirst and Andy Warhol who get their minions to make their art for them. And do you think that's a valid way of doing things or not? So I'm just going to finish really talking about what we're going to cover in future lessons. Today we looked at resonance in 2 pieces by John Cage and the role of chance composition. The next session is going to be about sound recording and site-specific composition and the role of chance in that. Week 3 is going to be about manipulating field recordings using sampling, sequencing and audio editing. And week 4 is going to be about circuit bending and Japanese onkyo no input music. Don't worry if you don't know all these terms, it will become clear throughout the course. And then week 5 and 6 we're going to be giving individual presentations of our portfolio to the class and giving informal feedback. So that's the general structure of these 6 sessions. The first compositional outcome is going to be a creative composition exploring resonance using prepared techniques or contact microphones. So either something that resembles this prepared guitar piece or something resembling the second piece with the piezo microphones. And you've got the option to incorporate an aleatoric score. Your second compositional outcome is going to be a field recording soundscape composition using basic editing packages. And the third composition is going to be a composition which embraces either circuit bending or Japanese onkyo no input music. We'll cover that more towards the end of the course. So that's come to the end of the lecture, but I just wanted to know if anybody had any questions at all. No?
Have you tried busking with this kind of stuff?
The guerrilla music, yeah. I mean that's the whole point. Is that it's confrontational type of music, and people don't always come across it. So I think busking would be an appropriate method of disseminating this kind of stuff. Yeah, thank you. Cheers. Right, if there's no further questions, thank you very much. Cheers.
Yeah.
Great.
Health and safety.
Yeah.
That's all right. You want to hand with your stuff?
Oh yeah, cheers. Thank you.
While we sort this out, if you want to completely
Thank you.
have a think about the feedback, what would be appropriate, and complete the form, and email it to Tristan.
Yep.
No, don't worry. Cheers.
Are we going to do sort of email now?
Yeah,
yeah.
Complete it, and we complete the form now and then email it.
Or we do it, there's the 1.8 form, is it?
1.8,
Something,
it's
yeah.
peer evaluation, yeah. It's in CNG Pro Forms box on Google site.
I can't get online.
You still can't get online. Can you get on a wire? Try the wireless.
I've tried both.
Try the wireless. Let's go. All right.